The Flip Side column from Dita De Boni this week looks at labour problems in the tourism sector and asks why the sector has submitted against upcoming fair pay agreements. Dita joins me now. And Dita, can you outline what is the problem here?
Well, the problem, Maria, as probably most of us know, is that tourism has survived for a long time on rather cheap immigrant labour, short-term work visas and so forth. New Zealanders aren't flocking to tourism jobs, and that is because ever since the Employment Contracts Act came in 1991, the real value of those jobs has gone down substantially. Union participation in the sector has been decimated. There are many small businesses who don't engage with unions, and that's their right at the moment. But what is coming up is fair pay agreements, and I was just surprised given the severity of the problem in tourism. I mean, they're saying they need to attract over 100,000 people back into tourism to make it work, to live up to the expectation when people come back. They've briefed against, or they've submitted against, the Fair Pay Agreement Bill, which I think sets out one sort of way in which they can redeem their reputation and sort of become a more employee-friendly sector.
So what's their problem with it?
Their problem with it is basically that it doesn't, well, there's a few problems they have with it. One is, I think the primary one is that they're philosophically opposed to it, as many business groups are, including Business New Zealand. They believe it doesn't allow for flexibility, which, is the old sort of catch cry of employers groups, that they want flexibility. But the flexibility comes at the expense of labour rights, I think, and that has been shown. That was what prompted the Employment Contracts Act right at the beginning. The Tourism Sector Association doesn't want to be one that negotiates these fair pay agreements. They don't want to be the party that does it. I suppose that's a fair enough thing. But another thing that the tourism industry Aotearoa has brought up is that fair pay agreements sort of penalise workers in tourism, being too inflexible or, prescriptive.
Yes, but you're arguing that somehow we need to lift the standards and therefore the pay rates for people in tourism in order to attract them to it. So
Yes.
It's sort of a bit of a counter-argument.
I think the problem is such that they have to consider something quite radical. And also it seems to me that what is going to be needed going forward is collaboration in the sector. At the moment, people are operating as their own little islands. They don't want to they don't want to talk to unions. They just want to do their own thing. And a lot of it is voluntary. Obviously you have to follow labour laws, but you don't. There's other things that you don't have to do. If in this framework there would be much more sort of requirement for compliance, people would have to work together, and it sort of brings people together to try and set a standard in the industry. To me, that seems like a sensible way of addressing the current problem.
Yes, but to do nothing sounds like is not the answer either. Like they need some form of collaboration, whether it's fair pay agreements or some sort of hybrid model.
Yes, and they do have sort of voluntary frameworks. They've got this industry transformation plan coming up that everyone's put into. They are trying to do a lot of things, but I think the problem with New Zealand business over many years is that they have been allowed to have their own voluntary codes of practice, their own voluntary this, voluntary that. And it means that good employers do well and possibly better, but a lot sort of just go underneath. And I mean, why is someone going to be attracted back to the sector when they can't be assured of a sort of a minimum state of play? I think we're in a situation in New Zealand where we have a massive labour shortage. So tourism isn't necessarily going to win out in that scenario.
So you would argue that the tourism sector should have a think again about supporting fair pay agreements?
I would like to see them have a think again, and I would like to see Business New Zealand also come up with some more creative solution to opposing fair pay agreements. I mean, I'm sure if they remain in the scenario of coming up with them, that they can make improvements.
Dita De Boni, we'll look forward to reading more.
Thank you.